information and making sure that we have participatory democracy in Zimbabwe. And I have panelists here who are going to help us dissect the topic at the end, or the theme at the end for the Zimbabwean chapter or for the Zimbabwean group. We are focusing on defending digital rights. And from the topic, you can tell that we are saying Zimbabwe at crossroads. So we are going to unpack why we are saying the country is at crossroads insofar as defending digital rights. It means that there are multiple layers of efforts, contradictions inherent in the process of promoting the enjoyment of digital rights. And we say digital rights are human rights. So we are going to have these presenters drawn from academia, drawn from civil society organization, and also from the Ministry of ICT, Information Communication Technology. I think he has been having challenges logging in, but he's really there. I think he will join very soon, or he is now joined. So we are saying that where is Zimbabwe going in terms of the challenges and prospects for digital inclusivity? So we want to share with our global audience the state of affairs in terms of the enjoyment of those rights, because our constitution clearly in section 61 states provides for freedom of expression and freedom of the media. And we see that the digital ecology has come as a critical avenue for the material realization of that constitutional right, freedom of expression and freedom of the media. It also section 62 speaks to access to information, and the access to information in this digital era, it means that we have to be deliberate about making the space safe, conducive, and inclusive for everyone, lest we marginalize certain voices, certain people, certain geospatial spaces. So we are now working towards broadly issues of a media reform process and the citizen digital participation in Zimbabwe, because we have media reform process. And we believe that the digital ecology is part of the mass media. It's actually the thing, the inherent thing. You know, even COVID has told us that, the new normal, the digital natives, the rise of the digital natives, the digital citizen, digital narratives. So we are going to unpack that. We are also going to look at access to information, the right to privacy, freedom of expression, and the digital era in Zimbabwe. We are also going to unpack aspects to do with the digital device, universal access, and online presence. So first now, let me hasten to call the first panelist, Nosipo Zoip Moyo. Nosipo is a Pan-Africanist, a feminist, and a human rights defender with 16 years of professional experience in human rights and digital activism. So let me give the opportunity now to Nosipo. I would ask you, Nosipo, to introduce yourself briefly in line with the presentation that we are going to do. So for Zimbabwe, we are working with a broad theme, and these presenters are going to dissect the thematic elements for this session in terms of their experiences, but feeding to the broader goal is set by Paradigm Initiative. So over to you, Nosipo. What Nosipo is saying, please, can you unmute me? Hello, Amina.
Angela, can you unmute her, please, the panelist?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the honor, the privilege to be in here, hoping I'm audible. Hello. So thank you so much again for, I've unmuted myself. Thank you for the settings. I hope I'm audible enough. So I would just like to firstly look at our issues around privacy. For me, before I really begin unpacking the session, I think it's, for me, what's crucial about issues or conversations around the digital era is how COVID has taught us the new norm on how we now need to rely on the digital, on how we now need to start on investing more on digital infrastructure. And that is how the conversations have started. More importantly, if we look at the state of African countries and the governance, we now have the push, the drive from most governments who are in authoritative form to actually come in and govern digital rights, because it is through the digital platforms that people have mobilized and organized to speak out. But how do people continue to mobilize, organize, and speak out when we're having other different laws like what was implemented in Zimbabwe, like the cyber security and data protection, which is now an act? What does that do? So having worked with diverse communities in Zimbabwe, I'd like to highlight how many people have been marginalized in issues around, firstly, access, and second, I would highlight issues of affordability. So if you look at, there was a convention 108, which was signed in 2018, and the modernized convention for the protection of individuals in the processing of personal data is in place to protect every individual, whatever his or her nationality is. And you notice that Zimbabwe, being part of it, it has to contribute in the respect of human rights and fundamental freedoms. More importantly, when we look in terms of Section 57 of our Constitution, it really speaks more on the rights of individuals when we were looking at premises of property searched and the right around communications infringed or even health condition being disclosed. Now, what has happened now, although we have all these provisions, is that it's more critical now when we're looking at issues around relief funds. I'll give you a case study which happened around the COVID-19 Economic Relief Fund, where we had the Minister of Finance, literally. He had to actually start sending people the money, the relief funds in their bank account or mobile wallet, as well as using the phone number for the purposes of identification of their location. That's when we start noticing issues around more of default privacy being infringed. So at that time, the Cyber Security and Data Protection Bill was already gazetted. That was in May 2020, after the March COVID shutdown. But this is what is happening in the era of COVID. And you notice that the Ministry of Information, Communication and Technology, together with POTRAZ, which is Postal and Telecommunications Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, they try to engage on the legal and policy interventions to be put in place. And government has always stood its position when it looks at such bills that are coming in at such an era. You'd talk about issues of exemptions around national security and public order, issues of public interest, and there's been a wide and vague terms that were not really unpegged when it comes to processing of sensitive data or purposes. And there's also issues around cross-border transfers of data. So for me, when we're really unpacking those issues around privacy, we need to start asking ourselves, who do we own our privacy because of such deliberate drawbacks that the law also brings. Jasper, I'm having connectivity issues. I just needed to know how much time do I have to present? If you can hear me.
Yes, can you present up to 20 past 1? So you have 8 minutes left.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Also, I'd like to move further, and right now I'd like to talk about issues, section 3 of interpretation. I would like to, specifically when we're looking at issues of Zimbabwe, for me, there were issues around IT resources and internet for data controller. The first issue I would highlight is the issue of data subjects that is not clear. Also issues of what people we now call as grabbers. So you notice that when it comes to personal information definition, that really needs to be expanded, where we can actually have identifiable elements, which on our current bill is still very big. So this means that a cell phone number or an internet protocol address or email address, location of data, and other online or identification tags must be considered as personal information. When it comes to issues around the protection, that's when it actually starts being more problematic because it's not there. And then the other issue I would like to highlight is issues around freedom of expression and also issues of digital divide, just to unpack so that people come and rush, also other panelists. So briefly, I would like to talk and speak about, when we talk about digital rights, there are other factors that contribute to those rights which are not necessarily in the digital platform. And we need to understand what are the structural barriers that have meant citizens are not enjoying the full enjoyment of those rights. And I feel we need to understand how the government itself operates. Let's talk about issues of privacy. Let's talk about issues of expression. Let's talk about issues of assembly. Presently, we have a motion that has been pushed in Parliament, which speaks to what can an individual say about a country. This is part of it. More specifically, I'm referring to the Patriotic Bill, which comes in to govern, because it's not only about the physical space that citizens have utilized, but the digital platform. So if the Patriotic Bill that comes after the Cyber Bill, and present, we're also in the process of the private voluntary organization, that speaks to 3 subjects, and mainly I would like to highlight the third objective of that bill, which speaks about political lobbying, which is very vague because we've got women rights defenders that have used the digital platform as a forum to do whistleblowing. A case study is Hopewell, and I'm sure we know how Hopewell has used the digital platform, has used Twitter to actually bring issues of injustices to the ordinary citizens. And we also know how even when there was a blackout at the Robert Mugabe International Airport, rumor had it that it was because there's need to arrest them. And that was one component which was left hazy when we were looking at digital rights, to say, how far do people have rights if they're coming in as whistleblowers? Now, when the Patriotic Bill comes in, meaning we're trying to design a law, an infrastructure for people to utilize that, but we're here to decide what can be said and how to say it. So for me, when I'm looking at issues of internet governance, I'm looking at other exterior factors that would affect how far people can go. Meaning, if someone has to put a tag to a similarly individual, association, institution, or assembly that the government feels it has been sanctioned because it's unpatriotic, you risk yourself being criminalized as an individual. But before we talk about that, the demographics, when we're looking at how many people actually do have access to the internet. MISA, they're running a very strong campaign on hashtag data must fall ZW. It comes at a time when issues of, when you're looking at the pockets of individuals and how much data costs have been straining. So to those who can afford that, does it mean when it comes to issues of access, we've got powerful, fast connectivity? And more importantly, there's been a debate around portraits and service providers when we're looking at issues of access, because not only are we talking about digital access, but some people, even when it comes to an ordinary call in the rural setups, people are failing. At COVID, we're having issues of online lecturers at educational level. How far are we? And if we look at the O-level results that came out, it's very disheartening, because actually the pass rates have dropped dismally because teachers are not there. Students do not have. It's one thing if they have the gadgets to access smartphones. It's another if they afford to actually buy the data. It's another if the connectivity is available. So the digital divide has really, really affected specifically vulnerable groups, marginalized or minority groups, such as women, rural-based, young people, and even children at schools. So for now, I would like to end here so that I would allow my other panelists to unpack before we really talk about the plenary to engage on the other issues as they come. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, well articulated, Nosipo, and I like the way you ended in trying to show that we have various demographic groups that we need to look at and think of when we are talking about digital inclusivity. Women, you know, and other vulnerable members who continue to be handicapped by certain aspects, systematic, structural, and various other factors that affect them from enjoying the right that should ordinarily accrue to them. And at this stage, maybe for the sake of our time and so that we can have robust discussions, let me hasten to call the legal department member from the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Mr. Franklin Zingani. He has been having challenges logging in. I'm sure he's ready, or he needs a few minutes to settle. Mr. Frankie, if you can unmute yourself so that you take the floor, sir. It's unfortunate you could not hear some of the things that Nosipo said. Otherwise, you could have also, in a way, articulated them or responded to them in a way, or amplify or shared some perspectives on the issues that she raised. May you tell me whether you are able to join now?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, other people on the platform. I'm sorry that I've had a problem with connectivity because of my, I don't know why it's happening now. People are always trying to get access to some things that you want to communicate with, possibly, I don't know. All right, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Briefly, maybe you can just introduce yourself briefly, who you are, then you assist us. Thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
Hi, my name is Franklin Mandla Zingani, Deputy Legal Advisor for Ministry of ICT, Postal and Courier Services. Thank you, Mr. Jasper Maposa, for inviting me to this conversation on digital access, which is very, very crucial to what my obligation is. for the past 11 years. Digital access infrastructurally is the most important thing. Without infrastructure, then you don't have anything. And it's very profit orientated. You cannot have digital access without some benefit. And the benefit for network providers is to have a profit. And the way that it can be achieved is through the USF. So what we've been doing from the 2016 policy is to have universal access. Universal access is coming slowly because of getting offshore funds to invest. What we have to do internally is to consciously give access. If you have a possibility of access, someone will always want to have more access. And that's how people can express what they want to communicate, what they want to hear, what they want to process, whatever idea anyone has. That's the freedom of information that I think we want to achieve. In the past 6 months, in December the 16th, His Excellency signed the Data Protection Act. The Data Protection Act was unfortunately signed by him called the Data Protection Act. It's a Cyber and Data Protection Act. And that's not what the Parliament passed. Parliament did not pass that. So the gazetting of that law was retrieved by Parliament to get the name right. It's not Data Protection Act, it's Cyber and Data Protection Act. The only way to have data protection and to have information security and access to information is to have universal access to information. Universal information is requiring bilateral and bilateral international interactions with anybody at any time. If there's a time to share information, it is the time that any person would want to share information. You can't stop the information before it is shared, because that takes away ideas. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you are very clear. You are very clear, and we are enjoying
Everyone's
the
very
discussion.
quiet there. Yeah, everyone's very quiet there. I just want to speak to myself. So the only way to have that guarantee of expression is to actually have it. And that's where the freedom is, to have it. Whatever it is to be able to communicate that, to process it, if you want to communicate it or not to communicate it. The problem is infrastructural resources that we have in our primary industries are infrastructural. Our network providers that are profit, so it's their businesses. So you do not find in rural areas or remote areas that they will go there without profit. The only way that is there is what they pay. That we moved 2 years ago, it was 2020, Statute Instrument 161 of 2020, where the USF moved up from 0.5% to 1.5% of revenue of any licensee in telecommunications to the USF. So what we should be concerned with is the usage of universal services money, because that is what goes to non-profiting areas for distribution of the infrastructure. Without the infrastructure, there's no way to communicate. You have to have the fundamental infrastructure, which are, number one, your radio frequency spectrum, your towers. If it's broadband, it has to be built. How does it get built? It gets built with resources. And it has not been built because of the USF usage of funds. I think what we should go towards is being accountable for the usage of a large pool of it's a large pool of funds. And we can see that infrastructure is not being rolled out in remote areas. What we've tried to do in the interim with our national ICT policy and come with the Data Protection Act, which also obliges licensees, and I'm going to be a bit legalese, in licensees, there are data controllers and data managers. They have to be registered. Who is the one who's going to get information and what will they do for it? And you have your 8 principles of data management. You have a usage. Why do I want information? What do I want for information? What am I going to do with information? Where did I get information from? Where am I going to give it to again? Why did that person ask for information? Your basic data principles of what you're going to do with information that's given to you as a data manager or a data controller. So that law was enacted on the 16th of December, but the wrong name. It was called the Data Protection Act. It's a Cyber Data Protection Act. And the resources are moved yet. Potras did a good thing when the 30th of March was the deadline for all institutions in our country to have a data manager to be registered by the data authority. And have you registered? Any of you?
I'm hearing it for the first time.
Have any of you? You're in control of a lot of data. Have any of you registered the amount of data that you're in control of? Have you?
No, no. We actually hearing. That's why you are here on the platform to assist us understand these things, because we lack certain information, and that's why we thought you are the person who can articulate certain issues and put us in the right direction.
Yeah, that was the 30th of March was the deadline for registering who your data controller and manager will be. And that is just the data management control, because that responsibility is about information. And there's a lot of responsibility to that information control. Who do you share it with? Remember your data principles. Why did I get the data? Who gave me the data? Why am I controlling the data? And what am I processing it for? Your job. Why am I controlling the data? Why am I processing the data? For a certain purpose, towards what communication? Is that communication going to come back? And what's going to happen thenceforth? It's very personal. It's information exchange. So at the 30th of March, it was gazetted. The Gazette came out on the 28th of February of the data exchange managers and data exchange controllers. And there have been 4. And you can guess who the 4 are. I would just like to ask you randomly, who are the 4? Who are the 4? Who's got your info? Who will just immediately register?
Colleague Tonio, who has this information?
Of course, your Registrar General. Who else? It's your information, everyone's information. The other 3 are financial institutions. CBZ, FBC, and what's the FCB? The one used to be Barclays. Financial institutions, because the fine the only way to have private industries to comply, it was a fining. So that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, Mr. Frank, are you done?
I don't think that you guys understand that it's a collective thing that we have to do to put up the regulations.
Yeah.
The regulations require us, like we write them. I write them. But whatever I think does not just operate. It needs consensus. And I think that's the way we can bring up other people who do not have the rights to express or listen and have access to information.
Okay, so when are we likely to have this act back? The cyber, you said it was wrongly named, the cyber security and data protection.
It was not
likely
cyber security, it was cyber and data protection.
Cyber and data protection. So is it going to come back after the revisions?
It got passed as data protection. Yeah, so it was unfortunately named the wrong way. It was named Data Protection Act, and that takes away cyber. That's going towards security. So where is it going? We don't make laws for other people. Who knows that? Mahara. What, for them to do what? Something, that's the law.
Yes.
So you don't legislate for someone else. So what do we legislate for? We did not legislate that. We legislated cyber and data.
Yeah,
So what we're trying to correct that, because it's also amending the criminal code from section 162 to 168 and the criminal code for computer crimes.